How do you make a deaf person feel included? I'm mainly talking about in a social environment, which is always a tricky situation to be for a deaf person, and more often than not, it's easy for them and us and myself to feel left out in those occasions. So maybe you want to fix that, maybe you want to get around that, and maybe you want to make sure that that person feels included. Well, I want to share with you 5 simple tips that can help you to do that. And I want to begin by, first of all, being aware and considerate of that person's feeling, because you can feel left out in a crowded room. You can't feel like a lonely person in a crowded room. Being aware about it is a great first step, and then that begins the interaction and the inclusion and making that person feeling part of that group. But then there are other things that you need to be aware of, like for example, concentration fatigue is a big thing, and I've talked about that many times, and you can check it out in the description. But concentration is simply where a deaf person has to use extra chronic energy and brain power to just focus intensely on what that other person is saying, and eventually you can get very, very tired from doing that. So even just being aware about is great, because maybe you can overcome that by doing other things, which I will explain in a minute. But also, if that person has to leave for whatever reason, then it's another way for you to understand why that person has to leave. And again, the other thing you can do is to make sure that you have simple things like either pen and paper to pass on information, or to explain things better, or maybe even just to say one word that they couldn't pick up, or even use technology like your phone to type it out. And that is something that can be very useful, because again, maybe you can be able to hear a number of things, but there's one word that I just can't hear very, very well. So maybe if you type it out or write it down, that's also okay as well. Number 3 is to consider being in a quieter environment. There are 2 ways of doing that. One is maybe to see if there is a quieter room in that same venue. Because if there's a quieter room, then everyone can benefit from that. Everyone can have a good conversation. It could be even outside that venue, like maybe it has like a patio or a garden area or a private area where it's under a gazebo or something. I don't know. It could be separate from the venue, but it's still linked to that venue. It could be a room, it could be outside, it could be anywhere. And the other thing as well is to even consider going to a different place completely. Because if it's a small group example, then it's even easier. If it's a conference, a bit more tricky. But if it's a small group, maybe for example, think about if a restaurant is too noisy, or a cafe, what about going for a picnic? It's a nice environment, it's a good weather, why don't we just go for a picnic? It's just a nice thing to do, it's sociable, it's quiet, lovely weather, it's in the sun, it's fresh air. Everyone can benefit from that. But of course, it's not always possible if the weather permitting, so maybe you want to think about going to another place where it's more known to be quieter. It's more known to be easy to able to talk to other people, because it's not like a noisy bar on a Friday night or Saturday night where it just gets quite rowdy, I suppose. So that's another thing you can consider as well. And then also you can think about different ways you can communicate with that person. Now I know I said 5 different ways, but really you can learn how to communicate to a deaf person. And there is a separate post I put it together. Again, you can check it out in the description, and it will give you some tips on how you can communicate with a deaf person. For example, simple things like make sure that you are in areas with good lighting so that you can lip read. Make sure that you are facing that person, again, to lip read. Don't shout. Don't exaggerate your lips movement. These little things combined together could make a big difference in me being able to understand you, and for other people also to understand you. So check it out in the description to learn how to communicate with deaf people as well. And then finally, ask. You can just ask that person as well, because every deaf person is different and they require different things, and that's okay, because everyone has their own different level of what they can hear or can't hear, and maybe they're able to cope in one scenario and not in another scenario. Everyone is different, so there's no harm in asking, really, and asking, is this okay, is it not, are you able to hear things, are you not, what do you need, what do you not need, all these things. Because if you make assumptions, first of all, you might get too far ahead of yourself. You might even, let's just say, you might even bring in an interpreter with you and just to help. While that might sound quite nice, not all of us require interpreters, sign language interpreter. I don't even speak sign language, so that's not going to work. But at the same time, before assuming, you might not have been doing enough, even though you have your best intention, but you assume that this is what that person requires and it's enough, but it's not enough. So ask. Ask is the simple thing to do, and that might be able to cover a lot of things, and you don't have to worry about it too much. And that's it. That's how you can make a deaf person feel included. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know in a comment. Let me know, reach out to me, and I'd love to be able to help you out as well. In the meantime, I hope you've done something. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will speak to you again soon. Take care.